Yoshika! Come on, you're late.
What do you want, Yoshika? God, I regret giving you the spare key to my house. Give it back.
Nope. This is my house now too, since we are now family.
Shut up. Just because our daughters are together doesn't make us family. You keep getting more and more annoying every single day.
Really? You're thinking of me every day? You're making me blush.
Good morning. Sorry about that. Yoshika jumped out of our moving vehicle while yelling, "Let's bring Asuka with us!" on our way to Doki Doki Reading Club's bi-weekly show.
Well, I don't know how.
Why don't you come along too? My wife told me you're Doki Doki Reading Club's second biggest fan after her. The more the merrier.
This family is filled with weirdos. Fine, let me grab my coat.
Yay! You can sit next to my husband.
I can't find my. Wait, Yoshika, stop dragging me, you weirdo!
Remember, kiddos, don't jump out of a moving vehicle and call your number one friend instead. It's time to Arashima and chill.
Chapter 5. Beyond the Finite Loop.
What's that?
It's a water bottle.
More than the bottle itself, what caught my attention was the strap it was hanging from. It really made her look like a little kid. I'd attempted to pass by this 18-year-old standing in front of my house with a water bottle and a rucksack, only for her to tackle me. The difference in our posture, combined with the surprise nature of her attack, had sent us both flying straight into the gate pillar.
Seriously with you.
I'm Nagafuji.
Was she even listening? The water bottle was the very same one she had used on a certain field trip in grade school, and seeing it made me feel quite nostalgic. But enough about that.
Did you come hang out at my place? Or are you going on a field trip?
Field trip.
Not sure where you see fields around here.
I'd had some plans for today, but I guess I could throw those in the dumpster now. It was actually quite common that something like this happened, making me wonder if she was perhaps ambushing me on purpose. That, or perhaps it was because I mostly went outside around the same time of day.
Well, whatever. Let's go then. But first, let go of me.
Still pinned down as a result of her earlier tackle, I tore Nagafuji, having taken her glasses off for some reason, off of me before escorting her back inside. It was just a feeling I had, but I could swear that she had somehow gotten even taller than the last time. That, or perhaps it was I who had shrunk. I took off my shoes, which I'd gotten to wear for maybe an entire minute, and put them on the shelf, which prompted Nagafuji to do the same.
I found this bottle at the back of the kitchen cabin, and that got me in a field trip mood.
She explained. Now, what had she originally been digging for there? I wondered.
But because I figured that I probably wouldn't make it if I tried going somewhere actually far away, I decided to come over to your place instead.
Really? Because to me, it just sounds like you wanted an excuse to come here.
I did.
Huh?
I tried tackling her, but was unable to make her as much as flinch.
Oh, you're back early.
It was Enome who greeted me, currently cleaning the shelves along our unreasonably long hallway. She then noticed Nagafuji, and I could swear that the slightest hint of a smile appeared on her face.
Welcome.
Welcome accepted.
This one said she wanted to have lunch in the garden.
Right.
As if accustomed to Nagafuji's strange antics, Enome got up without much of a reaction.
Well then, allow me to fetch a blanket for you.
Sorry for the trouble.
I'm used to it.
With that, The woman walked away, only for her to turn back halfway as if she'd forgotten something.
Is she staying the night?
Hmm. If I do, that'll turn the field trip into an overnight excursion.
Well, don't then.
No, I think I will. I like both.
Yeah, whatever. One look at the rucksack on her back made it clear that this had been her intention from the start. Who even enjoyed having lunch outside at this time of the year? I could already feel the sun scorching my neck.
Please, wait a moment while I get everything ready.
It doesn't need to be fancy. Seriously.
Oh, I really hated to interrupt her work for something this trivial. Or someone this titial. Seriously, just look at them. This joke earned me a light smack on the head. Could that be why I was shrinking? Because she was always smacking me?
Waiting.
Nagafuji hummed, letting everyone know what she was doing. A few moments later, I decided that enough time had passed, and we made our way over to the yard.
Oh, artistic.
The red blanket laid next to the pond immediately jumped out to me. So pronounced, so out of place. It looked like it had been painted there with a brush. While that would already have been plenty by itself, a parasol had also been erected next to it, a beach parasol specifically. And one with a watermelon pattern at that? Had she not been able to find one of a more appropriate size and time? Then again, I suppose I couldn't complain too much. I was the one who'd said that it didn't need to be anything too fancy.
How elegant.
You think?
The two of us sat down under the parasol. Being a watermelon, the shadow it cast naturally painted everything reddish. Nagafuji proceeded to put down her rucksack and water bottle before stretching out her legs. She then laughed.
You always sit so properly, you know.
Hmm? Oh, I guess I do.
Without even thinking about it, I'd ended up sitting on my knees like a proper lady. I could see Nagafuji smiling with sanctification as she stared at my legs.
What?
I like it.
Well, I'm glad you do.
For some reason, it felt like our conversations always stopped at the most random of spots. I didn't really get it. Behind my back, as if pressing against it, I could hear the sound of cicadas singing in the trees. As that was happening, the warmth of the sun, which the parasol did little to stop, burnt up my skin. Mixed in with the scorching air, I could smell the pond's moss.
Let's eat quick and get back to my room.
Oh no, we've gotta take our time. It'd be a huge waste otherwise.
How do you always manage to worry about all the wrong things?
Trying to hurry her along seemed to have worked at least somewhat, as Nagafuji reluctantly opened up her rucksack and pulled out a bag containing a lunchbox. What was inside? Yaki udon, made by her mom, no doubt.
So, you just happened to come here with lunch already prepared?
Thanks, Mommy.
I noticed that there was something else inside the bag, too. With Nagafuji busy munching on a particularly large piece of onion, I decided to pull it out. The object turned out to be a small container shaped like a goldfish. I quickly pulled the lid open. What I found inside were a bunch of canned mandarin slices. The sweet smell of syrup and fruit quickly assaulted my nose. I immediately recognized this thing. It was from a field trip we'd once gone on in elementary school. Which grade we'd been on, I could no longer recall. Regardless, she had forgotten to bring it back with her, resulting in one of the few times when I'd seen her looking genuinely sad. Wishing to cheer my friend up, I'd hunted down the store where she'd brought it from in the first place, purchased a second copy, and given it to her as a birthday present later that year. She'd been overjoyed, so much so that... well, actually, we can skip over how she'd rewarded me. In any case, that explained why she still carried this old thing around.
That was a pretty long time ago, huh?
And yet, it felt like it had happened just yesterday. So much time had passed. Us going to elementary school, us first meeting even before that, us starting middle school. All of those things were in the distant past now. This current summer was our 18th. How many more did we have left, I wondered. Today, just like in the past, I was the young lady of the house. The garden was large and wide, and Nagafuji was sitting by my side. There was nothing that I lacked, and nothing more that I desired. From the very moment that I was born, my life had been complete. I was free to live my life doing absolutely nothing. Whenever I was alone, yes, I did have worries, but when she was with me, they disappeared. If I could stay like this for the rest of my days, then nothing else mattered. I was satisfied.
So thought the young Hino.
Stop reading my thoughts.
I shook my hand at her. How had she even done that? Perhaps it went to show how little distance there was between our hearts.
Chapter 6 Summer 18. The high school Shima reflected in the mirror was making the same face as usual.
Looking tired.
It was honestly a shock that my eyes were even able to stay open. Was it really okay for me to walk around looking like this? Was bringing my negative energy to everyone who laid their eyes upon me? I wonder what did Adachi think about the matter. She probably didn't. If I'm being honest, she never did bare her fangs at me. How could she when she was terrified of even touching me? Yet, at the same time, she said physical intimacy. Those feelings will from time to time boil over and manifest at her ramming into me at full speed. Out of the two of us, Adachi was certainly the more physically capable individual, which meant that I really had to give it my all to avoid being crushed. Was it really that scary? In middle school, maybe, but I would thought that grown much friendlier since those days. Truly, love work in mysterious ways. It was currently the summer break of our third year in high school. You could almost count the days till graduation with just your fingers. It really had felt like high school will never end, that these days will continue on forever. How strange that in middle school, such a thought had not even once crossed my mind. Perhaps it went to show just how satisfied I was by my current life.
Well then, you should try looking a little happier.
I grabbed my cheeks and squished my face into a smile before leaving the bathroom behind. I considered simply returning it to my room, but noticing that my throat had grown dry, I decided to instead drop by the kitchen first. However, right in that moment, a bright light flashed above my head.
I sensed you, Shimamura.
I feel like you could have just used your ears or your eyes.
A gently treated sudden visitor off my head. What landed on the floor was a penguin, acting as if nothing at all had happened. Penguins were nice, but what was up with the banner with eyes written on it she had wrapped around her? It looked exactly like something you might find hanging in front of a cafe during summer.
What's that?
It's fancy. super fancy.
She clarified, while proudly pushing out her stomach. I didn't really get it, but whatever. She looked happy enough. The fancy penguin and I made our way over to the kitchen.
Mommy isn't here.
No, she's not. She goes to the gym at this time.
Oh, that's good to know.
The penguin laughed from the inside of her beak. I've been thinking about this for a while now, but that wasn't where your head was supposed to come out from, was it? Rather than being the penguin herself, it more looked like she'd been swallowed whole by one. Well, if not from there, where was her head supposed to be coming out from? That, in all honesty, proved to be quite a difficult question to answer. Another difficult question was, where did she even get all these pajamas from? They were all based on animals from that one picture book my sister had, but how did that work? Moreover, what was the point? Truly, there was no making sense out of an alien's logic. I opened the fridge, only for the penguin to immediately attempt to leap inside. As I was doing my best to keep her in place, my sister walked in. Every last inch of her skin not covered by hair cloth had been tanned brown, drawing a clear line between it and the paleness peeking out from the inside her sleeves.
Ah, if it isn't Shou!
The penguin waddled over to greet the girl.
You're what? A chili penguin today?
A fancy penguin.
Fancy?
Oh,
Oh, come here.
Watching my sister play with Yashiro's cheeks, I poured myself a cup of barley tea. I was supposed to return to my room, but decided instead to keep watching the two. Shortly after, I stood back up. I poured 2 extra cups of tea and handed those to the girls.
Here you go.
Oh, wow. Didn't think you could be this thoughtful, sis.
Shut it.
This cheeky comment earned the girl a pinch on the chin.
thank you dearly.
The penguin, on the other hand, responded much more politely. Even so, I couldn't help but feel like her choice of words didn't exactly mesh well with the expression on her face.
Where did you even pick that up from?
From viewing the television with Daddy.
Right. You do get most of your stuff from TV.
It felt like it was most of the nights these days that I'd catch her in the living room watching TV with Dad. It seemed that Dad, too, had gotten quite used to this strange creature. So much so that whenever he bought candy from the store, he knew exactly how much extra he should buy for her.
What do you want to play today?
Something sweet.
Mom's influence, on the other hand, could be best seen in her sense of words.
You wanna play too, sis? If you ask nicely, I might consider it.
Yeah, as if. I have exams soon. I need to study.
This wasn't a joke. I was actually studying quite hard. I'd taken some time to think about things after starting my 3rd year in school. And the conclusion I'd ultimately reached was that I did in fact wanted to go to university.
Sis, you're going to university?
That's the plan, yes.
Just had to pass the exam first.
Oh, university.
You know what a university is?
It's a yummy potato.
Right.
Sounded like she was thinking of a different word. Well, whatever, I shift my attention back to my sister.
Does that mean you're gonna move away?
This question felt like an arrow being shot at me. Never before had I experienced anything like this coming from my sister. Her eyes, wavering with uneasiness, reminded me of that time when she had still respected me. How adorable. And here I'd said she'd never be a kid again.
Nope. I'm planning on going from home.
For someone like me to suddenly move to live by themselves, all I could see that ending was disaster. Now, what will I do once I was finished studying? I suppose that was a problem for the future me.
Huh? That's cool.
Based on the small smile that appeared on her face, it looked like about half of her worries had been washed away by my answer.
Oh, were you gonna get lonely without your big sis?
Oh, this earned me a kick under the table. Huh. Deserved.
Okay. Let me cheer you up.
I grabbed the girl's cheeks and squished them around just like how she'd been doing to Yashiro moments earlier. Then again, even if it's not right now, there will eventually come a day when I need to move out. Wonder? Thinking about it, I do find myself feeling slightly sentimental. I guess you could say that I really did love living here. With the majority of my puberty behind me, including the rebellious phase of middle school Shima, I was finally able to say that for certain. I might not have expressed those feelings verbally, but they were clear from the way I conducted myself. Perhaps it was why Mom, too, kept pestering me constantly these days. Surely, what was up with that woman? She was so elastic.
Oh,
Having been giggling mere moments ago, Yashiro's expression all of a sudden returned to normal as she turned to face the kitchen wall.
your phone rang, Shimamura.
Oh, it did?
While I hadn't heard anything of the sort, I decided to check it out regardless. If there was one thing my time spent with this Helen had taught me, it was that her senses were on a whole different level.
Keep the penguin from opening the fridge?
I told my sister before leaving the kitchen. The final image I saw in the corner of my eye was Critter waddling in place, with the girl holding her in place. Good enough. So there was a penguin living with us now, huh? I suppose that, in the literal sense, you could consider that as fancy. Walking down the hallway, the floorboards so humid you could practically hear them splashing with each step I took, I made my way back to my room. I stood in the dead center of it for a moment, wondering where my phone was again before suddenly remembering that I left it charging. I walked over to where the charger was and grabbed the device.
Oh, yeah. I do have a message. From Adachi.
Good job, Penguin. Her senses truly were sharp. Suspiciously so, in fact. Hearing the phone ringing in a different room would be one thing, but she was also able to tell when someone was coming home before they even rang the doorbell. Like, how was that even possible? I truly did not have an explanation for it. I even asked her about it once, but she had only laughed at me.
Please do call. And send.
I still felt like it'd be way faster if I just called her myself. And yet, I never did. There was a part of me that felt like it was wrong to prioritize efficiency in a relationship. I wonder, did Adachi ever think about stuff like that? If I had to guess, I'd say probably not. After all, the only relationships I was aware of her having was with me and her mother. Speaking of her mother, what was up with her? Huh. Before I could think about that for any longer, my phone rang.
Yes.
Hey,
I went out of my way to speak before she could say hello. I then waited for her to finish her greeting.
yes.
This is exactly what I like about you, Adachi. Although, I think this isn't the first time I've said that.
She was very teasable, I suppose you could say. Oh, but don't get me wrong. I wasn't trying to claim that she was weak or anything. No, it was clear that she was putting in a lot of effort to act stronger. Take this situation, for example. She was obviously flustered, yes, but whereas in the past those feelings might have overwhelmed her completely and left her making all kinds of strange noises, here she was able to manage them. Now, did that mean that there would eventually come a time where her suspicious behavior was but a distant memory? Perhaps it was wrong of me, but I kinda didn't want to see that happen.
Now then, what is it? Or did you just want to talk?
Talk.
About?
Is it okay if I come over?
To my place? Yeah, sure, but I warn you, it's pretty hot in here.
I turned the old storage room on the second floor into a study room, and while there was an air conditioner here, it was obvious that the thing wasn't working properly. I was forced to rely on a crappy electric fan to stop myself from passing out. Now, what did Adachi see in this room that made her want to come here specifically? Obviously, I already knew the answer. It was me. She wanted to come over for me.
It's just. It's been so long since I saw you last.
Has it?
I counted with my finger. 3 days.
Didn't we go on a date 3 days ago?
That date had taken place at the mall. Not that there really were any other good place to hang out around here. Conversely, the mall had everything. The fact that the parking lot was full every time we went there was all the proof we needed.
3 days.
3 days.
Yes, 3 days.
Be it a single second or a century, any span of time without you feels too long.
Aren't you the poet, Adachi?
Her love for me was so intense that from time to time I found myself wondering if I truly was worthy. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I was against it or anything. Rather, it was more accurate to say that I doubted myself. Such was the intensity of her love, living it in its shade. I doubt even she herself could see its true extent. All this standing in place was starting to hurt my feet. I walked over to my rolled up futon, sat down on it, and proceeded to idly stare at the ceiling.
Oh, studying. We could study together.
Somehow, it was always the simplest words that caused Adachi to the most trouble.
Sure, that sounds good.
Come to think of it, I'd never actually done that before. Studying with a fellow student. The thought alone was quite thrilling.
I'll be waiting then. Oh, but please don't rush. I don't want you to get into an accident or something.
Yeah.
The shortness of her response combined with her immediately ending the call made it clear that she did in fact intend to rush like crazy. I put my phone down and spread my arms open, feeling like I'd surely fall asleep where I lie like this for any longer. I forced myself up. Would the old me have done that? Absolutely not. Clearly, something had changed. Many things had since I'd met Adachi. Putting all of them together, they gave me motivation. It was quite incredible, wasn't it, for another to become a source of motivation for you. I knew from experience how rare that was, and that was exactly why I respected Adachi so. Now, Adachi was coming over to study with me. I imagined we'd be doing no such things. With the fan blowing softly, I watched as the pink wind floated in the air in front of me. The fact that I didn't even have energy to be shocked by this sight went to show just how dreadful summers were. That said, this was nothing compared to that time which had been a jellyfish. Seeing her float around back then had been a truly magical experience. I'd asked her before how she was able to fly, and surprisingly enough, she had actually given me an answer, just not one I was able to understand. I did remember, though, her stressing that she was not technically flying, but rather constantly rewriting her positional coordinate, whatever that meant. Could it be that she was actually super smart and was only using this childish appearance as a disguise while she planned to take over the world? Taking that, I went to grab a box of chocolate from nearby, which I then handed to her, promptly her to immediately start munching them down with her usual happy smile. And thus, the planet had been saved for yet another day. Putting that aside, I went ahead and focused my ear to see if I could do it too. Now, what exactly was I supposed to be listening for? Obviously, I had no idea. I closed my mouth shut and listened extra hard, but the only thing I was able to pick up was the beating of my own heart. I guess that was good enough for now. Should I perhaps be thinking more about Adachi? With such idle thought rocking my heart around, the penguin landed softly on the floor next to me. She then let out a chirp and pointed her wings toward the hallway.
Adachi will arrive shortly.
Will she?
I tried sensing how far away she was, but naturally, it didn't work. Now, maybe if she started singing like a cicada, maybe then I could sense her. One thing was clear, that being that whatever signal Yashiro was picking up, it couldn't be love. Why? Because if it was love, Adachi's love, that would shine all the way to the far side of the moon. Clearly, love wasn't something that you could sense. What was it then? In the back of my mind, I hoped that I could one day find an answer to that question. A real answer, not a scientific one. Now, I really relied on some strange yet to be discovered alien organ, then no, you could forget about it. Though at the same time, I kinda felt like Adachi might still be up to the task.
For someone who can't even wash their own dishes, you sure are capable of a lot of weird stuff.
Ho 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 ho. If you're ever unsure, just wait outside and you'll be the first to arrive.
Huh. I don't know if that's supposed to be deep or just nonsense.
Now, back to my sister you go, I concluded while giving the penguin a pat on the back, sending her waddling down the hallway. It was quite strange how we had all just seemingly accepted this mysterious creature was now living with us. If it was like Hino's place, for example, yeah, that would make sense. You could totally imagine an alien living somewhere in that giant mansion, but here? Why? Why'd she chosen us? Perhaps it was that destiny thing she was always going on about. Feeling my own date with destiny drawing near, I made my way over to the entrance hall. There, my eyes came across a basketball. It'd been years since I'd last used the thing, and these days, it mostly just sat on the shelf, almost like a trophy of some kind. I picked it up, rolled it around my palm, and then put it back down. The mere touch of the ball was enough to take me back to the days of old. I opened the door and took a step outside. Doing so, I was greeted by sunlight and a bike.
Shimamura?
And you are Adachi Sakura.
Having just gotten off her bike, Adachi stared at me, her eyes wide. Turned out, the alien had been right on the money.
Were you waiting for me there the whole time?
Adachi's eyes shined with anticipation, rivaling even the sun in the brightness. I guess if I was ever to go over to her place, that's how she'd be waiting for me. Not that I'd ever been. There was this one time when I'd said as a joke that I wanted to visit the room, to which Adachi had reacted by violently shaking her head and telling me that I absolutely could not. Why was that? Did she have some sort of weird stuff in there? Maybe enough to build a shrine out of that she prayed on daily?
No. I sensed you coming. Or actually, a little bird told me. Or something.
I decided against telling the truth halfway through, but only ended up fumbling over my words. The mood had been totally ruined. And yet, Adachi didn't seem to mind. On her lips bloomed a pretty flower.
That's kinda amazing.
Whereas myself, I'd probably been wondering if there was something wrong with my hearing. Adachi's thought appeared to exist on a higher plane. Feelings of guilt running through my mind. At this point, it was too late to pretend like I wasn't getting something out of this. Moving away from that topic, Adachi picked up her bag from the basket of her bike, and the two of us headed inside. Standing on the porch, I smiled and waved my hand.
High School Shima, reporting in.
Huh?
She thought about it for a moment, but in the end, didn't seem to get what I meant. I very much enjoyed seeing her like that, looking all puzzled.
Oh, don't worry about it. I just felt like I had to say it.
Just like I feel like I have to do this, I added as I took a step past her. I stepped straight into the closed front door. Well, that's what it would have been had Adachi not slid sideways to form a wall in front of me.
I guess I wasn't getting past her after all.
And thus, the story began.
Adachi's eyes had practically turned into question marks at this point.
Sorry. Feel like I'm not really following you today.
That can happen sometimes.
Personally, it felt like it was a good thing. Most of the time, she was the one going too fast to follow.
Welcome. To the second floor you go.
Pardon the intrusion. Oh, is your mom not home?
Nope, she's at the gym. Feel free to skip the formalities.
Taking a quick peek at the pale white skin poking out from underneath her dress, you walked up the stairs to the second floor. It was there that I noticed that she was still wearing the hairpin I'd given her as a gift quite a while ago. This little fact alone made me feel such joy. Many things did when I was with Adachi. Our lifestyles were completely different, resulting in plenty of fresh experience for the both of us. And yet, despite those differences, we were able to coexist in harmony. Did Adachi's eccentricities often get in the way of our high school life? For sure. At the time, I found it oddly satisfying that if anything was proof of our compatibility. Entering my room, I immediately noticed that the air there was a tiny bit cooler compared to when I'd left. Turned out, it'd been a wise idea to leave the air conditioner on. There was another thing I noticed as well, that being the smell of dust. Despite the multiple hours I'd put into cleaning this place up, I could still smell the old storage room whenever I walked in. What was up with that? I suppose that just as was the case with people, a room's past could not be so easily forgotten either.
Oh, 3 days, huh?
Yeah.
Brushing her hair to the side, Adachi continued staring at me. There was nowhere for me to run, nor was there for her.
I feel revitalized.
Sure. I'll take that as a compliment.
I went ahead and tried imagining how that might look. Me vitalizing her. For whatever reason, the image that came to my mind was one where Adachi was a houseplant, and I was pouring water on her, getting her all nice and wet. Meanwhile, Adachi proceeded to sit down, her joints letting out the sort of creak that made one wonder if she perhaps did need some water. She was wearing a top that left her shoulders fully exposed, contrasting quite nicely with the meek posture she had assumed. Perhaps I should have put on something nicer too, instead of just sticking to what I already happened to have on. My shirt was all stretched out, and this part is a secret, but my shorts also had a tiny hole in it. Having had no plans to leave the house today, I hadn't even bothered putting on any makeup. Couldn't I have just done that between now and when Adachi had first called me, you ask? Sure, I could, but as you just saw, I've been far too busy attempting to awaken my latent ESP powers. While it might have been a fact that Adachi was head over heels for me, that probably wasn't an excuse for me to not put the tiniest bit of effort into my appearance. Like, if she could do it, then why not me? Starting off small, I went ahead and straightened out my back.
Huh? What?
Nothing. Just checking how vitalized you were.
Still pretty warm in here, I added while turning the fan on. While all of the fans on the first floor were already the bladeless kind, such modernity had yet to make its way up here. The green plastic blades of the device spun around like a water wheel. Adachi put down her bag, pulled out a notebook as well as a set of writing equipment, placed those on the corner of the table.
Oh, wow. You actually did come to study.
Huh?
Nothing. Let's study.
I kinda assumed we'd be spending the entire day just talking about stuff. Moving the stuffed seal out of the way, I cleared myself room to sit down. As I did, I could see Adachi nervously swaying from side to side. I went ahead and followed her movements with my eyes, which immediately caused her to blush. She tried to laugh it off, but the only part of her face that seemed to comply were her eyes. It felt like whenever Adachi was with me, I forgot how to smile. Now, based on that alone, you might have thought it was a case of me applying some sort of pressure on her. However, even though I'd never seen it myself, I'd heard the regular Adachi being described as indifferent, sometimes even callous. The kind of person who only ever had a single expression on their face, regardless of who they were talking to. Ugh, very scary.
Hey, Adachi, could you cool down for me a little bit?
I was just curious enough to ask her. Clearly not getting what I was asking her to do, she stared at me for a moment, pinching her upper arm.
Oh, do you want to drop by the pool or something?
Very interesting interpretation there. Cool, huh? Well, that didn't sound like the worst idea possible. Going to the gym right now did come with the risk of encountering the cop.
Oh, no, not what I meant. I was talking about your attitude. I kind of want to see the regular Adachi.
Regular? This is the regular me.
You're normally all calm and distant, from what I've heard.
Especially in middle school. She apparently looked exactly as she did now, except even more relaxed. I really wanted to see that with my own two eyes. Would I want to let her see what I had looked like in middle school? No, absolutely not. But we weren't talking about me right now, were we?
I am calm right now.
Are you?
I got up and walked around the table to check. Already, that illusion of calmness was starting to break as she leaned away from me. I chased after her, got all close, and then what? What should I do next? Her guard could not have been more down. For whatever reason, All the ideas that came to my mind were the inappropriate kind. Her bluish-black hair, her eyes glimmering green in the sunlight, her adorable face, no longer that of a girl, but not quite yet that of a woman either. As I stared at her, I could only think of a single thing. How beautiful she was. How unbelievably beautiful she had made herself for me. Her soft cheek practically begged to be touched. I placed my hand upon it. This caused Adachi to switch slightly. In her eyes, you can see anxiousness, but also something else. I gave her cheek a quick squeeze, letting out a suggestive giggle. I returned back to my seat. In truth, there was no thought behind it. I had no idea what I was doing here. No, that was a lie. I did have an idea, but was simply too cowardly to pull it off. Was that okay? Or had I done a big mistake? A wave of hesitation crashed over me. Knowing Adachi, she'd be ready to accept whatever I had to give her. You might have thought this was a good thing, but in reality, it only made me worry more. Oh, how young I was. We both were. Hiding my blush behind my hands, I giggled once more.
Shimamura?
From time to time, I could hear my sister and Yashiro playing downstairs. Yashiro's voice especially was quite audible.
Once summer break ends, there's the cultural festival, right?
I decided to see if I could turn the flow of this conversation to a slightly more school-related topic. Adachi, having been keeping her mind occupied by trying to line up the corners of her notebooks, tilted her head at me, as if the words I just said made no sense whatsoever.
Oh, is there really?
Well, there was last year.
Not that I'd participated, not last year, nor the year before it.
That said, there's much for us to do there, since we aren't part of any clubs.
Right.
Adachi sounded quite disinterested, which honestly wasn't all that shocking. School was hardly something she was passionate about, after all. However, it appeared that she quickly realized something, as she added the following.
Wanna go take a look around together when it happens?
Oh, sure. That sounds nice.
Not like she needed to ask me in advance. Like, who else would I go with? That's right. No one. This cute little Adachi was all I needed.
Now then, shall we get studying?
Sounds like you don't really want to.
That's studying for you.
Some people might have been able to engage with studying in a positive manner, but I sure couldn't. And yet, for all these days, I kept it up. It felt like for once, I was actually thinking about my future. Or rather, our future. I knew that failing here would make it impossible for me to keep walking the same path as Adachi. If there was ever a time in my life where I needed to give it my all, this was it. In all honesty, it felt kind of good. Now, that wasn't to say that all of my plans had turned out equally well. From the very beginning of summer break, I thought it would be nice to have some place outside of my home where I could go to study. And, well, you could see how well that had turned out. Maybe I should try looking for one of those study groups or whatever. Then again, it was probably already too late for that. I had no shortage of things I'd wanted to do, but had missed my chance.
It just went to show how important it was to do what mattered now instead of postponing it for later. That way, instead of 100 regrets, you would only have 99. I had another look at what I'd written down in my notebook the day before. I found doing that over and over again a surprisingly effective method of memorizing this stuff. Or maybe that was just what I told myself. Feeling my posture starting to get worse, I went ahead and pulled myself up. Doing so, my eyes met with those of Adachi, who for some reason swiftly averted her gaze. Not only that, She then proceeded to pound her belly like a sumo wrestler preparing to enter the ring. I briefly considered asking her if everything was okay, but soon realized that there was no need. The answer was right there in her eyes. If it was neither the textbook nor her notes that she was looking at, then what was it? Time to find out. First, I placed my finger in front of her eyes, after which I began slowly moving it away from her, tracing back her line of sight. I could already hear Adachi panicking, saying stuff like,
It's not what you think.
but I ignored her. Soon enough, my finger had arrived at my own chest. It appeared that was where her eyes had been pointing at, my chest. I turned to look down at my shirt. There was some English text written on it, and while you probably could have read what it said a couple of washing cycles earlier, at this point it was illegible. When I slouched forward earlier, had it perhaps looked like I was trying to hide it? Maybe? No, that wasn't it. I raised my head. Adachi's entire face was glowing bright red, to the point where it almost looked like someone had covered it in strawberry jam. Even the teeth peeking out from behind her trembling lips looked like they were about to change color. I did like strawberry jam, and I did like Adachi, so maybe that was actually a good thing? No, jokes weren't going to get me out of this one. I could feel my own ears starting to get warm too, showing that Adachi wasn't the only one feeling embarrassed here.
Hey, Adachi.
Should I confront her, or should I not? I honestly didn't know. My feet dangled in the air, waiting for directions.
Yes, I'm Adachi.
It was as if her anxieties had come alive and were now controlling her like some sort of a puppeteer. What to do, what to do. I could always just not mention it and go back to studying. At the same time, I felt like this was a really important problem to tackle. Were Adachi and I to remain girlfriends, it would surely need to be solved one day. That day might as well be today. The world before me growing blurry, I decided to go for it.
Were you just looking at me in a naughty way?
There. I'd said it. There was no taking it back now. My memory would not allow it. I could practically see steam shooting out of Adachi's ears. Immediately afterwards, she slammed her head straight into the desk. You could practically feel the floor shaking underneath us. Clearly, she hadn't been holding back. While my initial reaction was that of confusion, those feelings quickly turned into worry as I realized that she wasn't getting back up.
Hey, Adachi.
I did not.
It appeared that was the best rebuttal she could muster. Honestly, I was more worried about her head at this point. Wait, no, I didn't mean it like that.
You really shouldn't hit your head like that.
It's fine. I'm fine.
The price she'd paid for calming herself down clearly visible on her forehead, Adachi pulled her face together. Or at least, most of it. Her lower lip still continued to tremble, showing that all it would take for her to launch into a full-on Adachi-style tirade was a momentary loss of focus. The whole thing was making me feel thoroughly uncomfortable. That said, it wasn't like I could just turn back. Not anymore.
All jokes aside, if there's something you want from me, I'd very much like to know. So, what is it?
As I spoke, my fingers continued drumming against my knees. What was the name of this sensation, being incapable of sitting still? I knew it must have had one, but I couldn't think of it.
It's a lot of things.
The way her mouth moved kinda made it look like she was sucking on a piece of candy. Was I really that insufficient? That wasn't good. Bad, even. Very bad. So,
Adachi,
what sort of a reaction was that? I raised my hand in the air as if making a pledge.
I will now ask you a few questions.
Again, was she biting her tongue? That certainly was what it looked like. Maybe I should stop. I'd hate it if she ended up biting her tongue off, which, at the rate things were currently going, honestly didn't feel like that distant of a possibility.
This is a very serious question. I'm going to need you to answer honestly. For the both of us.
It might have sounded like I was just bullying her at this point, but I wasn't. I wouldn't want to be asking her these things either if I had a choice, but I didn't. This had to be done. For her sake, for my sake, and for the sake of our relationship going forward. Adachi continued taking deep breaths, though it kinda just sounded like you were trying to pump a balloon already full of holes.
I've never lied to you.
Between each individual word, there was a long pause. It looked like that was the only way she was able to speak. Would she really be able to make it through this? Then again, I suppose this wasn't that different from how she acted on the regular. Now, time for the big question. The question which, if it was launched at me, I'd probably just run away.
You were staring at my breasts, were you not?
I was not.
Hey, I said you couldn't lie.
Please, Shimamura.
Her voice had turned totally and utterly inside out. Yet that also meant that it could flow out freely. Her eyes were spinning in circles, and so was her tongue. I could only imagine what it must have looked like inside her mind.
I'm not offended or anything. Like, you already saw them in the bath on that school trip.
It sounded like she wanted to object, but wasn't able to come up with anything.
Yes, I saw them. But that was all.
I could ask her why she had been looking at them, but I doubted that was going to lead to anything.
Was that what happened just now as well? You just happened to look?
Her hair swayed as she shook her head lightly.
I really didn't. Well, a little bit maybe.
A little bit?
Not the slightest bit.
Good deflection there. If I wanted to, I could easily end this conversation here. Should I? No. There was only one proper way to do this.
Look, I get that you're embarrassed, and that's fine, but I need you to be honest. Like, I've got to be able to prepare myself too, you know? I love you, and nothing you say will change that.
No way would she be lying anymore after that last bit. I certainly wouldn't be. Were my methods a bit forceful? Perhaps. However, opportunities like these didn't come around often, and I wasn't going to simply let it fly by. Smiling, I stared into Adachi's eyes, the expression on her face looking like that of a baby barely having left her mother's side. This was something that had always worked on me when I'd been unable or unwilling to tell the truth. Presumably, it would work on her too. That appeared to be the case, and a few moments later, Adachi had calmed down enough to be able to sit down properly. Anxiously, her fingers drummed against her knees.
I did. Sorry.
She stated after a short pause, sounding like a child confessing to doing something they shouldn't have.
Oh, no. There's no need for you to apologize.
I guess.
Now, back to the initial question. I see that you've begun to bloom.
Was that even remotely the right expression to use? It was at times like these that I wished I carried around a dictionary. The more I thought about it, the warmer I could feel my ears getting. Neither the air conditioner nor the fan were any match to the heat coming off our bodies. Summer. Our relationship had passed spring and entered summer.
Right. Yes. I get it. What you want to do is be intimate with me. To have sex.
For some reason, saying it straight was much easier. My fingertips, which my head rested against, continued mercilessly tapping my ear. Midst of what sounded like rain, I could see Adachi taking a deep breath. I found myself feeling slightly worried that her feelings would overtake her, and that she might collapse soon.
For the third time, I need you to tell me how you honestly feel. I want to be able to meet your expectations.
That was what it meant going out with someone. That was what it meant being in love with someone. In love. Out of all possible relationships you could have, this one made my skin feel by far the itchiest. From time to time, I'd stop to think about just how wonderful it was that I had a lover. Speaking of said lover, she was currently losing her mind over my slightly, or perhaps not so slightly, sensitive question.
She.
You could practically see tiny little stars floating around her head. I really wish her mouth could say as much as the rest of her face did.
Letting out a soft grumble, Adachi stared at me with pleading eyes.
What about you?
Huh? Were we just going to skip past her answer? No, that wasn't it. The blush on her cheeks, the ambiguity of her wording, the way she tried not to look me in the eyes, they told me everything I needed to know. Adachi truly was a master of non-verbal communication. Her body and mind alike were working at max capacity to produce a reply. It must have been exhausting.
What about me?
Her head hung, and her eyes cloudy and wet. Adachi quickly glanced at me, only for her gaze to enter freefall.
Shimamura. Sex.
It sounds too bad when you shorten it like that.
Besides, it was supposed to be Shimamura Hougetsu, just like how she was Adachi Saka. AS. Area service. Those were the sort of stupid jokes that filled my mind as I attempted to come up with an answer to her question. She probably wanted me to say yes, that I did, that I looked at her with wicked eyes.
Truth be told, I haven't really given it much thought.
Sure, I did enjoy spending time with Adachi, but it wasn't like I was constantly imagining what was under her clothes. The Adachi I saw was the only Adachi I knew. Now, like I said before, this probably wasn't what she had wanted to hear. I wondered, would she be able to live with that? Still, giving me the puppy eyes, I could see a slight frown appearing on her face.
Right.
Hey. Don't pout.
I'm not. I get it. I do. You don't feel the way I do, and that hurts. It does. But it's not supposed to be one-way street.
She adjusted her posture, drawing herself closer to me.
I'll wait. do you feel the same way?
Adachi.
I admired her determination. What she actually said, though, wow. Just wow. Even attempting to reform a response made me feel like I was going to pass out. Still, she really was doing that, huh? Waiting patiently. For whatever reason, I could have easily imagined her having had enough and demand I give her what she wanted. Perhaps I had done a better job explaining my feelings than I initially thought. If that helped bring her some amount of relief, then yes, that was good.
Sorry. I know it can't be easy.
It's fine.
She said with her eyes drawing circles. I could barely stop myself from letting out a giggle.
And now, while I might not be able to meet your expectations fully, I do want to give you something. A reward. You can touch me wherever you'd like.
All yours, I added by spreading my arms wide open.
Huh?
Adachi's mouth turned into the shape of an ellipse. Clearly, this wasn't what she'd been expecting.
Pick anywhere you want, and you can touch me there. Only one spot, but it can be anywhere.
It was the least I could do, being her girlfriend, right? I did briefly wonder if I was perhaps giving out a bit too much by going with anywhere right from the start, though in the end, I decided to stick with it. Sure, I was a little worried, but as long as it was Adachi doing it, I knew I wasn't going to hate it. There truly was no force stronger than love.
Shimamura.
Adachi mumbled, her mouth still an ellipse and still shooting out steam as if that was what she ran on.
Or someone else's. Wait, no. Yes, mine.
My body was the only one I could offer. I could see Adachi's delicate little fingers drawing the letters T, O, U, C, and H in the air. She had a quick look around, and then quietly crouched down. And when I say down, I mean it. Her forehead was literally rubbing against the floor. She then proceeded to topple sideways, her body rolled up into a ball like a baby, before suddenly launching herself backwards. Then she became a ball again. Her eyes were wide open, and drops of sweat could be seen dripping down her face. Her lips, so full and so lustrous mere moments ago, now appeared all shriveled up. The answer was energy. She was currently burning energy at an incredible rate. Truly, she must have been the most troubled maiden in the entirety of the world. Never before had I seen a person writhing on the floor like a bagworm. Conflict and lust, appearance, fear, and justice. All those feelings and more had come together, were now having a fistfight inside her mind. I wonder, which one would win? Lust was probably the one throwing the heaviest punches, so maybe that? Or maybe justice with its sturdy defense. Never before had I wanted to see what went on inside her head like I did right now. It must have been total and utter chaos, that was for sure. At the same time, getting over this would surely result in her growing as a person. Really? Good luck, Adachi. No, that didn't even make sense. Still, good luck. Finally, after a few moments of rolling on the floor with the seal plushie, she pulled herself up. Her eyes shone with dim but dense light. Time for Adachi to show me the level of conflict she was able to overcome. Closed her eyes and pushed out her left arm. Staying like that, she then began taking steps towards me.
Do you really need to close your eyes?
My hand won't move if I don't.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Her arm, stiff like that of a mannequin, she slowly pushed it forward, her fist clenched tight. It almost looked like she was about to punch me or something. Yet, even though her eyes were still closed, she was clearly aiming for some part of my body. I guess she must have been peeking just a little bit. I took a quick glance at the notebook lying on the table. I knew we weren't going to be studying. Ready to accept Adachi's touch, no matter where it was aimed at, I too closed my eyes. There we were, two people facing each other, both with their eyes closed, and one with their arm extended. I had plenty of time to think about what a strange situation this was, as I waited for Adachi there in the darkness. I thought about the friends I was about to meet again this coming summer. Would this be the last time we saw each other? That was a thought that crossed my mind quite often, and yet I still went out of my way to see them. And why? Because I wanted to. Much like Adachi now. A light appeared. Like a flickering flame, I could feel its warmth against my skin. Little by little, that warmth eroded me. Which one would melt first? My skin or the flame? Even with my eyes closed, I could tell it was Adachi's finger that was touching me. Was it her touch or her soul? Did your soul really extend to your fingers? I think I got it now. If I just kept doing this, but gradually increased the range, then eventually I'd be able to sense her presence, even from a distance. It was kind of wild just how far removed my thoughts were from what was actually going on. It ended up being the small gasp of Adachi's that brought me back to reality. Her fingers kept moving frantically, as if attempting to grasp something that she wasn't even sure was there. Looking at her, I let out a small giggle. Never had there been any reason for me to worry. What were we doing in this world, where every time we blinked, someone somewhere would die? How did those people see us? Some would probably be shocked. Others, angry. And yet, one day, I too would die. So would Adachi. I imagined her face all cold, her cheeks pale, her eyes closed and unmoving. I imagined her lying there for the rest of eternity, with nothing I could do to wake her up. Oh, I didn't want that. No. Thought alone made my chest ache. I was in pain. It was as if I was being turned into string cheese. I could feel my torso being stretched to its limits before ultimately getting torn off. Strange metaphor, but it showed just how important Adachi had become to me. The roots of the Sakura tree that was Adachi had grown around me, and now bound me tightly. There was no longer a way out, was there? Then again, maybe I didn't mind. The Sakura flowers blooming above me were just pretty enough. Maybe there'd been a chance for me to escape while she was rolling on the floor earlier, but I didn't take it. Someone had once said that talent meant being able to do things you hadn't been told how to do. And if that was the case, then Adachi must have been incredibly talented. Yes, she did occasionally bite off more than she could chew, and yes, her behavior did sometimes make me worry, but never did I run away. Well, that too was talent, I felt.
Adachi.
Startled by my voice, Adachi grew stiff, with even more sweat dripping down her face.
You're really talented, you know?
What that was supposed to mean, I didn't know. It sounded like a bomb had exploded inside her mouth. That sentence was what you were left with when you attempted to summarize my thoughts. The sentence just begging to be misinterpreted and misunderstood. Now, if you asked me to explain to her what I had really meant, I'd probably be the one left hopping up and down while making all kinds of strange noises. So, whatever.
Naughty Adachi.
I tried minimizing my shame by directing my thoughts into the parts of my brain I'd last used in grade school. her right arm dangling by her side. Adashi's face first turned blue, then red. This was it. This was the Adachi I'd wanted to see. This was what I wanted from her. Clearly, the things we wanted from one another didn't currently line up. However, they would eventually. I'd make it so. Keep on learning, and keep getting to know her more closely, until one day, no matter how long and hard the road might be, I'd get there. I'd wait for that day, and was sure that Adachi would too. We still had plenty of time left. That, in itself, I suppose was our greatest blessing. I might not have been talented like she was, but I'd show her that I could get there too. I watched as Adachi's finger drew circles in the air. With it slowly approaching me, deciding where to land, I closed my eyes. In this world where a person died as you blinked, and another was born.
Adashima Shorts 1, The Nose of Elephant.
It's been ages since I last went to the aquarium, but that sure was a blast. Oh, how that place has changed over the years.
Huh?
If only it was closer by, I'd visit it all the time.
Huh.
Yes, so much fun.
I like talking with you.
Why do you say that?
Because you never listen to a single word I say.
Yeah, I do. By the way, did you know that I can't swim?
I'm pretty sure that we met by the pool.
Whatever. Anyway, I was thinking of visiting the zoo next.
Oh, sure.
You should come too.
Huh?
It'll be fun.
Shut up.
I wasn't sure why, but in the end, I allowed the woman to drag me with her. There was definitely some kind of magic to her infuriating antics and borderline maddening way of talking. Load her up with merchandise or whatever and tell her to sell them. I bet you could make a pretty buck. Not that it was any of my business. I thought to myself as I made my way over to our house. There by the car, a group of people stood waiting for me. There was her, obviously, her husband, their youngest daughter, and then one more. She quickly noticed me and immediately started doing her usual nonsense. As for her husband, he greeted me in a much more normal manner.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in on your family trip.
No. It's fine. The more the merrier.
Oh? Oh? Who's this? Obviously I know, but who's this?
We both ignored her.
But seriously, though, don't worry about it. Besides, you're not the only guest we have.
Her husband wrapped his hands around the little girl and picked her up, almost like he was showing me the family cat or something. Coincidentally, the girl happened to be wearing an animal-themed onesie, or maybe pajama, so I suppose it wasn't too far from what was happening. I continued to watch as her stubby limbs dangled in the air. Wasn't the first time I'd wondered about it, but who exactly was she? Why was her hair so blue?
And what are you supposed to be today?
A tiger! Roar!
An attempt at a growl left her tiny mouth. That didn't sound like any tiger I'd ever heard.
You look more like a colorful cat to me.
With that, her husband dropped the cat. Tiger cub? Only for their daughter to catch her from the air. Then they began spinning around in circles while giggling. Truth be told, it seemed like they were having quite a bit of fun.
Children, right?
The woman seemed quite proud of herself. Okay,
She's clearly not yours. Why is she always hanging around your house?
Oh, yeah. She's an alien.
sounded like I just found the missing third child. Seriously. I glanced at her husband for additional comment, but he only nodded his head.
So it would seem.
Sounded like he could barely even remember.
And what is an alien doing at your house?
My daughter brought her in. My youngest daughter, I mean. She turned out to be quite the nice girl, so we let her stay.
That's not how that works. You should really reconsider this whole thing.
No, it's fine. She follows me when I go shopping and tells me all sorts of things about space. It's very interesting talking with her.
There she went again, completely ignoring me. Aliens? Seriously. Then again, looking at the tiny creature frolicking before me, I couldn't deny that she had a interplanetary feeling to her.
Pretty lucky that she happens to look like a human, right? Would be hard to communicate with her if she looked more like, say, a fish.
Personally, I feel like you'd have no trouble communicating with a fish.
It was painfully easy for me to imagine the scene of her excitedly listening to the life story of a fish swimming in a small water tank while repeatedly nodding her head. Now then, enough about that. We had a zoo to visit. Just how many years had it been since the previous time? I sure hope they gotten some funnier animals. Sensing that I was ready to go, the woman raised her hand and opened the rear seat door of the car.
I'm sitting in the back.
Oh, I thought you would have taken the passenger seat.
Well, no. You don't want to mess with the driver. You might die.
Or you could just not? Have you ever thought about that?
That's boring.
Declining to comment further, the woman stepped inside the vehicle. I guess that left the passenger seat for me. Honestly, I didn't mind. It was much better than having to sit next to her, that was for sure. When was the last time I'd sat in the passenger seat? When was the last time I'd been in a car? I was breaking a lot of streaks today, it seemed. With thoughts of all sorts flowing through my mind, I turned to face the windshield and nothing. No lingering bits of sentimentality. No anything. Behind me, the alien girl, or tiger cub if you preferred that, had been placed in the middle seat between the woman on one side and her daughter on the other. I managed to catch a glimpse of the daughter putting a small piece of candy in her mouth.
Just one, okay?
I believe was what she said. The girl's cheeks instantly grew puffy to a point where, it was pretty much impossible to see a tiger and not a cat.
Give me one, too.
Just one, okay?
The woman ate the candy with similar delight. Looking at the two, I ended up meeting eyes with the tiger cub.
You are Adachi's mommy.
Yeah.
Not only was the girl's hair blue, so were her eyes, sparkling like a pair of gemstones. Even her nails and teeth had a faint hue of blue to them. Honestly, I'm starting to buy that whole alien thing. It was certainly more plausible than whatever the alternative was.
She's a little different, isn't she?
I hope you can forgive me for failing to find the right words here.
It wasn't like I was expecting to be talking with an alien on my way to the zoo.
Me?
Yeah. It's not like there are any other weirdos here.
Well, there is one.
Dad, she's calling me a weirdo.
My own daughter? A weirdo? Whoa, I'm gonna cry.
Replied the father.
That's so mean.
Waves of fake crying rolled over me from all directions.
What is this family?
What?
Truth be told, the woman wasn't the only strange being around here. They all shared that title. The zoo we drove to was located outside of the city. It was absolutely massive, and even had garden with all kinds of exotic plants. While nowhere near this grandiose, I tend to remember once visiting a zoo on family trip. As the smell of animals and vegetation filled the vehicle, it brought those memories back into my mind. Back then, my husband had still been living with me and my daughter. These days, it was just me in that. Not that I minded. If anything, I felt like living by myself suited my personality better. I'd gone through all that, built myself a family, and then flip up a switch. Lost it. Did I have any regrets? No, not really. That would have required a certain amount of happy memories. Memories which I lacked. We began walking around the zoo together. Whether it was real or just my mind playing tricks on me, that I didn't know. But I found the variety of animals here to be much more diverse than it had been at the other zoo all those years ago. They had anukis, seros, pelicans. Honestly, how did they even take care of them all? It must have been a nightmare to work here. Myself, I'd barely been able to raise my own daughter. We eventually made our way to the lion enclosure. I watched as the creature majestically swallowed a slice of raw meat, currently in the process of sucking on a piece of candy. I wonder, how did this mysterious alien appear to the animals? Also, which one would win in a fight? An alien or a lion? I know. I was too old to be thinking about stuff like that. Next up, we arrive at the aviary, yelling louder than any bird could. The woman immediately ran inside with the kids. Really not feeling like following her, I decided to sit this one out. As I was waiting, I found my throat starting to grow dry. I immediately began looking around for a vending machine or something, only for the woman's husband to appear from around the corner. He gave me a small nod, to which I nodded back before grabbing the bottle of green tea he was offering me.
Sorry about that. She just gets so excited when she sees animals.
Some of us never quite grow up, huh?
I stated as a joke, to which the man laughed.
You can say that again. She's a restless one, that's for sure. Always has to be doing something. It was like that when we first met, too. I figured she'd grow out of it eventually, but if anything, it had only gotten worse.
It was quite the way for a husband to be talking about his wife. Then again, as someone who'd had the misfortune of knowing her for over a decade now, I definitely saw where he was coming from. The woman had mastered the art of being annoying, always pulling out just as her victim was starting to lose their temper.
She has made herself quite a lot of friends with her attitude, but also a non-insignificant amount of enemies. And yet, no matter how many times it backfires, she just keeps going for it. Personally, I think that's quite admirable.
Maybe.
Being able to act so friendly with people you've never met before had to be some kind of a gift. No two ways about it. Myself, I've yet to decide whether I like it or not. It didn't take too long for the woman, her daughter, and the alien to return from the aviary. The three of them all had wide grins on their faces, signaling that they had quite enjoyed the experience. The man left my side to go look after the children, and as if taking his place, the woman in turn walked over to me.
What were you two talking about?
You?
Really? You're making me blush.
I glanced in the direction of the woman's husband, only to find him lifting the blue-haired girl in the air and asking his daughter if they look like a giraffe. What? Actually, never mind. I didn't want to know.
He's such an airhead, that man. My oldest takes after him quite nicely.
Your oldest? Oh, yeah.
She meant the one living with my daughter. The one she wanted to spend her life with.
So, how about you? Having fun?
It's alright.
Here, let me pick you up.
The woman extended her arms as if she was serious. I slapped her on the head and sighed.
I'm reminded of the time I last visited Tatsu. It was decades ago at this point.
Was your daughter with you?
Yes, and my husband too. Hmm? I think there was this plushie or something that she wanted. I don't know why, but she never asked me to buy it for her. I kinda wish I had to. I feel like things might have played out differently.
Perhaps I should have just taken the initiative. Perhaps I should have shown more affection. Personally, I dislike when people did that, and so instinctively I had assumed that she did as well. And yet, I've been wrong. Though a mother and a daughter, we were hardly the same person. For whatever reason, the woman decided that the following reaction was appropriate.
Well, in that case, how about you buy a plushie now and give it to her?
She's an adult, not a kid.
And? Is it any different if you do it now?
Ugh, God! How annoying could a person possibly be?
Myself, I loved getting gifts when I was little, and I still love giving them now. Give me something!
Shut up!
Be it a giraffe or an elephant, I love them all!
What am I going to do with you?
Tigers, though, those are a little bit too scary for me. Nothing
Well-
at all like our adorable little tiger. No, they have the eyes of a killer.
Well, yeah, that's what tigers do. They kill.
This conversation was going nowhere. I found myself growing more annoyed by the second. Didn't certainly help that the woman was practically yelling. It's not a single part to her that I thought I would have gotten along with. And yet, put them together and somehow, the combination was able to tug on my heartstring. Brighter than even the sun, her genuine honesty shone through my cold exterior. It was as if I was being reborn. So that happened. We passed through the gift shop on our way back, recalling the eerie face of my daughter from all those years back. I ended up purchasing an elephant plushie. I held it up, and behind its head, I saw Yoshika duking it out with a giant bear.